Today we're going to look at two different forms of a linear equation, and we're going to talk about how to rewrite one form so we can get the other form. And those forms are slope-intercept form and standard form. Now remember, a linear equation is an equation where if you graphed it, you would get a straight line. But before we can actually graph these equations, we need to be familiar with the two different forms of equations. And that's what we're going to look at today. So, slope-intercept form is our first one, which you are probably familiar with. It is in the form y equals mx plus b. In your equation, the y and the x are always going to just stay those variables, y and x. We're not going to fill those in with any numbers. But the m and the b are going to be filled in. If you remember, the m is your slope, and the b is your y-intercept. And later on in the chapter, we'll get into what that looks like on the graph. Right now, we just want to be able to look at each equation and rewrite it. So my first equation here, I have y equals negative 1/3 x plus 4. That is in slope-intercept form. I actually want to convert that to standard form. And standard form is our second type of linear equation we're going to look at today. And that's in the form ax plus by equals c. Now just like slope-intercept form, our x and our y are always going to stay x and y in our equation. Now the a, the b, and the c, those are going to be some number that will be filled in. So for example, I have my equation 8x plus 4y equals 2. This is in standard form. And again, my a is 8, my b is 4, and my c is 2. Now, you can write a linear equation in either form. It does not matter. And eventually, we're going to show you how to graph using each form. But right now, we just need to be familiar with how we can rewrite one equation to get the other equation. So we can rewrite a slope-intercept equation to get a standard equation. And write a standard equation, rewrite it to get a slope-intercept equation. So that's really what we're going to focus on today. So my first equation, I have y equals negative 1/3 x plus 4. To write it in standard form, all I need to do is I need to move all my terms that have an x or a y in it to one side of the equation. I'm going to move all my constants, again, all my terms with no variables, to the other side. So in this equation, I already have y on this side. I have a term with my x and it has an x in it. I want to move this term to this side of the equation. So after I add 1/3 x to each side, I'm left with the equation 1/3 x plus y equals 4. Now in standard form, we don't want any fractions as our a or b or c. So again, our numbers in front of our x or our y or our constant term, we want to make sure those are always whole numbers. So to ensure that happens, when you have a fraction, you want to multiply the whole equation by the denominator of any fraction you're dealing with. So since we have a 1/3 x, we're going to multiply this whole equation by 3. So I'm going to take 3 times a third. 3 times a third is just 1, so that gives us x. 3 times a positive y gives us 3y. And 3 times 4 gives us 12. And now I'm left with the equation x plus 3y equals 12. And we've now just converted this equation from slope-intercept form to standard form. So now let's go the other way. So I have an equation in standard form. I want to convert that to slope-intercept form. So if you remember, slope-intercept form is in the form y equals mx plus b. So to convert this equation, we're going to move everything to the other side that is not a y. And again, this is just like last section where we were rewriting equations. So you're pretty much just solving this equation for y. So to get started, any term that does not have a y in it, I'm going to move to the other side. So that would involve this 8x. Again, to move it to the other side, you perform the opposite operation. So since it's a positive 8x, we're going to subtract 8x. That gives me 4y equals negative 8x plus 2. Remember, when we're solving for y, we want to isolate y. So I have a 4y. If I just want a y, I'm going to divide by 4. That leaves me y equals negative 8x plus 2 divided by 4. And since we're writing it in a linear equation, I actually do want to divide both terms by my denominator. So I'm going to divide negative 8x by 4 and 2 by 4. Now this is my constant term. It has no variables in it. I'm going to leave that term where it's at because it's going to be by itself on one side of the equation. So if you remember when we were rewriting equations last section, if I want to move this to the other side, I just need to perform the opposite operation. And since I have a negative 1/3 x, to move it to my left side, I'll just add 1/3 x.